What? Neville blurted upon crossing the fire. It really was Quirrell. Damn it, now I owe the Weasley twins money. You were betting on who was out to kill me? Harry asked. Isn't that a bit morbid? Oh, like you're one to talk. You bring up your facial disfigurement, as you call it, every chance you get, Neville pointed out. Harry shrugged. Well, yeah, everyone seems to love talking about it, so I figured I was doing them a favour. At least the Weasley twins have faith in me. Before Neville could answer, Quirrell spoke. I wondered whether I'd be meeting you here, Potter. I must say, I didn't expect to see Longbottom, though. Harry looked confused. Why were you wondering whether you'd see me? I'm bloody 11. I really should have more sense than to go after a fully trained wizard who wants to kill me, armed only with my first-year classmates. Although, if he really were 11, it probably wouldn't have occurred to him to force an adult to listen after getting the brush off from McGonagall. God knows, it hadn't last time. He really should have been more specific about why he thought the stone was in danger. Gee, I don't know, Quirrell said sarcastically. Could it be the fact that every time I face away from you, you insist that your scar is on fire? Harry opened his mouth to answer and then abruptly closed it again. Fair point, he conceded. I must say, I didn't honestly expect you to figure it out considering Severus seemed so much the type. I mean, who in their right mind suspected me Quirrell when that overgrown bat was swooping around? I would. Harry, I believe the question was who in their right mind? Neville reminded him. Oh, right. Why, maybe I wouldn't have figured it out if you didn't have bloody Tom Riddle on the back of your head. This was news to all present. Neville had no idea what Harry was talking about in the slightest. Quirrell had no idea who Tom Riddle was, and Tom Riddle had no idea how Harry knew that was his real name, and not Voldemort. Quirrell eventually decided not to ask and snapped his fingers, tying both Neville and Harry up. Harry cursed himself for forgetting about that, and focused on trying to remove the ropes without his wand. He could do it if he had enough time, but he'd need to concentrate. In the meantime, Quirrell took the opportunity to mutter to himself about how to find the stone. Suddenly, Voldemort said, Use the boy! Use the boy! Neville started. Would that be Tom Riddle? He whispered. Harry merely nodded. Quirrell rounded on Harry. Yes, Potter, come here! He undid the ropes surrounding Harry and bade him to look in the mirror. Unlike the last time, when Harry had thought the stone would be safer in his pocket than in the enchanted mirror that Quirrell couldn't figure out and was frustrated and desperate enough to rely on a child to get it, Harry didn't actually want the stone. Well, Quirrell asked impatiently. What do you see? I see my family, Harry paused. Again, seriously, people, this isn't going to change, so stop asking. You don't see the stone? Quirrell asked, disappointed and a little skeptical. Why would I want the stone? Harry challenged. It seems safe enough where it is. As Harry began to discreetly itch away from Quirrell, Voldemort spoke again. The other boy has it. Harry froze. Damn it! You really should have mentioned that looking into the mirror was a bad idea. Quirrell started towards Neville, who, for his part, looked terrified. Let me speak to him. Face to face, Voldemort decided. While Quirrell was making his courtesy protest and doing what Voldemort wanted anyway, Harry wondrously and silently managed to free Neville. Ah! Neville yelped at seeing the face of Voldemort for the first time. Harry was calmer. He knew that he could handle Voldemort as he was now. He just wasn't sure about Neville. Harry Potter and Neville Longbottom. How ironic that should be the two of you standing here together to face me. Ironic, isn't it? Yet fitting. Tom Riddle, I'm fairly certain you're a paedophile. Neville nearly choked. He didn't quite know who this was, but he had a nagging feeling that he should. You dare! Voldemort began angrily. Although whether he was more upset by the use of his real name or by Harry's accusation, it was hard to say. Yeah, I do. Let's just skip the part where you're offended and I know your name. Go yada yada, shall we? Get on with it, Harry suggested. Voldemort was silent for a moment. Then he said, There was a prophecy, you know. Harry tensed. What was Voldemort trying to do here? He hadn't said anything of the sort when Harry had first met him before. Was it because of Neville's presence? The prophecy told me that there would be a boy, born at the year of July, whose parents had defied me 3 times, who would stop me. That could have applied to either of you. I chose to attack Harry here, and he did indeed stop me, temporarily. Prophecy had fulfilled, so you see, there really is no need, nor reason, for me to kill you, or your friend. For the matter, Neville, just give me the stone in your pocket, and you have my word that I shall not harm either of you. The word of a liar and a murderer, Harry snapped. You? Neville swallowed hard. You destroyed my parents' minds! That wasn't me, Neville. That happened after I was gone. Bellatrix Lestrange, although one of my most faithful, if misguided followers, although that your parents are prompted, Arius, and widely known to be close to that puppet Master Dumbledore, would know what had happened. I do not condone nor their actions. I will make them suffer for taking your parents from you, Neville. Just say the word, give me the stone, and your parents will be avenged. Neville was shaking uncontrollably now. You could have just as easily attacked me and killed my parents. But I didn't. Voldemort's voice was soft, persuasive. I went into Harry's because I didn't want to spill any pure blood unnecessarily in case I chose wrong. Noble pure blood children such as yourself had a future. Dear Neville, driving your parents into insanity was such waste. They were a fine witch and wizard. Once I'm restored, I will rectify every case of worthy purebloods, such as your parents, losing everything but their life. I can give you back your parents. Just give me the stone. Neville was quiet for a moment. No. Before Voldemort could process Neville's refusal, Harry seized the opportunity and leapt at Quirrell, pressing his hands to the man's face. The pain in Harry's scar was so intense that Harry couldn't see. He knew he should have probably intervened before now, but somewhat like Dumbledore, he wanted to give Neville the opportunity to face-to-face with Voldemort and figure that refusal to give in to Voldemort, even when he was promised everything, would do wonders for Neville, still struggling self-esteem. Just as Harry was about to pass out, he heard Ridecto, and Quirrell went still. He looked up and saw Neville, eyes wide, lowered his wand. Oh, Harry! Neville! Hermione cried the minute they exited the corridor. For lack of any better ideas, they had simply rode Harry's broom up through the trapdoor. She immediately hugged them both. Hey, Hermione, Harry said weakly. Did you find Professor Dumbledore? Indeed, she did. Dumbledore spoke from behind Harry. How did he... It was best not to ask. Now, I'm sure you have many questions for me, and I know I have a few for you. But first, why don't we get you all to the hospital wing? When Madame Pomfrey was done tending to them, and Ron and Hermione sent on their way, Dumbledore returned. You should probably give Professor Dumbledore the Philosopher's Stone, Harry started things off by suggesting. Neville's eyes widened. Oh, right, I completely forgot about that. Indeed, Dumbledore's eyes twinkled. You must have had a lot of excitement down there, Harry snorted. Well, that's one word for it. I killed Professor Quirrell. Silence filled that declaration, and Neville just stared down at the hospital bed, clenching at the sheets. He hadn't been discharged because he hadn't stopped shaking once they reached the hospital wing. What happened? Dumbledore's tone was grave. Sensing Neville probably didn't want to talk about it, Harry took a deep breath and began. Quirrell was after the stone. Ron was taken by the Queen in chess match we were playing, and there was only enough of the potion for us to get through the flames to see Quirrell for 2 people, so Hermione went back to Ron, the Mirror of Erised was there, and Quirrell tried to use me to get to the stone, but I didn't really want it, so Neville, who apparently wanted to get but not use the stone, managed to get it instead. This caused Quirrell to unwrap his turban and reveal that he had Voldemort on the back of his head. Voldemort? He promised Neville his parents back if he had just handed over the stone. Neville said no. Voldemort was going to attack Neville, so I used my mother's sacrifice, magical love protection, to burn Quirrell's face, and right when I was about to collapse from magical exhaustion, Neville fired a Reducto at him. I killed him, Neville said again. Quirrell was already dead, Dumbledore told him gently. He was dead the minute he allowed Voldemort to take up residence in his body. He would have died anyway the minute Voldemort left him, which he would have done tonight, regardless of if he took the stone from you and crafted himself a new body, or if he failed and decided that poor Quirrell had outlived his usefulness. So it's not my fault? Neville sounded doubtful. No, it's not, Harry agreed. He knew it would take a while for it to truly sink in, and he wished that it hadn't had to happen this way, but there was nothing he could do about it now. He honestly hadn't expected Neville to attack Quirrell, while he was burning him with his touch. So what's going to happen to the stone now? Harry asked, to change the subject on to less depressing matters. Dumbledore then proceeded to explain how the Femelles were all set to die now, but it was okay because they were really old anyway, so maybe it was only slightly less depressing. Do you have any more questions? Dumbledore asked generally. Well, Voldemort did say one interesting thing I was hoping you could explain, Harry said innocently. Dumbledore nodded, indicating that he should continue. Apparently there was some sort of prophecy about Neville and I that caused him to come after me, Harry said slowly, enjoying the sight of all the colour draining out of Dumbledore's face. Something about me being the only one to stop him? I did not intend you to find out like this, Dumbledore said, at last, sighing, especially not at such a young age. I had hoped, but alas, what's done is done. I suppose there is no use laminating the fact. I wish I had a pensive with me, but I do not, so I will have to simply tell you the philosophy. The one with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord approaches, born to those who have free to find him, born as the 7th month dies, and the Dark Lord will mark him as his equal, but he will have power the Dark Lord knows not, and either must die at the other's hand, for nor can live while the other survives. And that could mean either me or Harry, Neville asked, looking faint. Alas, no. The prophecy is about Harry. When Voldemort chose to go after Harry and give him his scar, he marked him and made the prophecy about him, Dumbledore replied. Neville tried not to look too relieved as he realised it. Would not probably be up to Harry to stop Voldemort. Sir, you realise that I'm 11, right? And I'm not really the most responsible person around, and you really shouldn't expect me to be the only one who can kill him? I wouldn't dream of expecting anything from you for a few years yet. And in fact, I cannot make you do anything. On the other hand, by the time you come face to face with Voldemort, for the first time, knowing he wants to kill you, knowing he has killed, or tried to kill, countless others, you may very well decide that killing him will be for the best. Certainly, if he regains a body and does not stop hunting you, chances are very good that either of you will die at the other's hand. Walked to the leaving feast with a heavy heart. Sure, Hagrid had gotten him a scrapbook filled with pictures of his parents. He'd spent all night at the Crupt, where graduating party the 7th years through, at Tonk's insistence, as he didn't really know the other 7th years very well, and he'd get to see Ginny again soon. On the other hand, Gryffindor had indeed won the House Cup this year, despite his best efforts to the contrary. Harry tried his best to appear disappointed when Dumbledore announced that Gryffindor was in the lead. On the bright side, this meant no need for the last 7 points. Recent events must be taken into account, Dumbledore countered. Harry groaned. Of course they must. Dumbledore awarded Ron 50 points for the best played game of chess Hogwarts had ever seen, despite the fact that there was really no objective way to measure something like that. Hermione 50 points for not poisoning herself or her classmates, Neville 50 points for lighting a rare and valuable plant on fire, and Harry got 60 points for not telling a responsible adult about Quirrell's attempt to steal a stone, and for endangering several of his classmates. Of course, Dumbledore might have phrased it slightly differently, but it was still blatant favouritism. Harry started banging his head on the table, and didn't stop until Percy got so annoyed he threatened to hex him. It really wouldn't do to get Percy in the habit of doing that, as his refusal to do so was really the only reason why Harry was able to do so much of his more public after-hour activities. The celebration at the Gryffindor table over finally being the best psychotic house to get so annoying that halfway through the feast Harry got up and went to go sit by the Slytherins. He spent the rest of the feast compensating with them and complaining about the blatant favouritism. Dumbledore, who couldn't hear what he was saying, smiled broadly at Harry's mature attitude of reaching out across house lines. As the Hogwarts Express was pulling into the station, Harry was honestly glad that the train ride was over. For the first time in his life, he, Ron, Hermione, and Neville had just sat back and let all of Harry's various accomplishments and Neville's herbology friends come visit them throughout the train ride. Unfortunately, this had not stopped Hermione from pestering Harry about his exam results, so he made the highest first-year grade since Dumbledore and was now being hailed as a prodigy, to both of their acknowledgements. It was really just a 12-year advantage. After all, being the adult who had to sit through boring meetings and hold press conferences and regularly petition the Whistle-Not meant that he officially had an attention span sufficiently enough to pay attention in Binns' class, so he even did well in history of magic despite his blatant refusal to study, and that was why Hermione was convinced he either cheated or was holding back his brilliance all this time. "You must come and stay this summer," said Ron. "All of you, I'll send you an owl. Oh, and by all I meant everyone, but Malfoy and his goons," which just left Harry, Hermione, and Neville. "Like I would even want to," Draco shot back. "My bedroom's bigger than your whole house." Harry rolled his eyes. "Draco, remember what we talked about, how it's not nice to stalk your father's political rivals. And that reminds me, this might be a weird question, but do you have a house elf named Dobby?" Draco nodded. "Now who's stalking who?" You're stalking Ron. We just talked about this, but anyway, the reason I asked is because you remember how my scar told me that Quirrell was out to kill me?" Draco nodded uncertainly. "Well, it's also told me that you have a house elf named Dobby who will steal all of my mail this summer, so if you could order him to leave my mail alone, that'd be great." Draco shrugged. "Why not?" Once they got off the train and lined up to go through the gates in small groups, Tonks came up to him, hair bubblegum pink. "So, I got accepted into the Auror Academy," she said, "and this is my celebration hairstyle." "So you're going to keep it like that?" Harry asked, amused. "Yeah, I'm going to keep it like this every time I'm not disguising myself for as long as I'm over the moon about this." "I would have told you earlier, of course, but I was too busy hiding from Percy." "Hiding from Percy? Why? He's like the least frightening person ever," Harry pointed out. I know, but he wanted to hear me go over Newts for the 3rd time, and asked how I thought he did during Owls by regaling me with the fascinating tale of every little answer he put or spell he cast. Tonks complained. "Sounds like Hermione," Ron blurted. "Hey! So, isn't there anything I can do to get you to let me call you your first name?" Harry hastily amended as Tonks glared at him. "Nope, sorry." "Oh, come on. I'll give you my firstborn," Harry promised. Tonks laughed. "Aren't you a little young to be thinking about that kind of thing?" Harry shrugged. By all estimates, he should be a dad by now. If it was a boy, they'd name him James Severus, and if it was a girl, they'd go with Lily Luna. "Keep in touch, won't you?" Harry asked her as she was about to head through the barrier. "Oh, you couldn't get rid of me if you tried," she told him after she disappeared. While Harry and Ron went through, followed by Hermione and Neville, Harry heard quite a bit of gossip surrounding Draco Malfoy, and the question Harry threw on his parentage at the beginning of the year. He snorted. He'd completely forgotten about that. "There he is, Mom." There he is, look, Ginny exclaimed, jumping up and down the minute she saw Harry. Hi, Ginny, right? Harry smiled at her. Yes, she said, looking anywhere but at him. You're going to Hogwarts next year, right? She merely nodded. I'll see you there then. Oh, and Miss Weasley, I wanted to thank you for your very thoughtful Christmas present. Oh, it was nothing, dear, she assured him. Well, I'd better go, Harry said. I think my uncle might still be mad at me. Since September, Miss Weasley said, shocked. Well, he did send me death threats at Christmas, Harry told her. Oh, my! When Harry arrived at home, he saw a large black dog laying on the Dursleys' front lawn, as if waiting for him. Harry quickly stashed his stuff in his room. He might have threatened to turn Uncle Vernon blue if he tried to lock his school things away, but he did promise not to use any magic. And ran out to meet him. Hey, boy, he greeted. You look like you could use a walk. I'm going to the park. Come with. Dog just cocked its head like it didn't understand, but proceeded to follow Harry. Once he reached the park, which was thankfully deserted, he sat down on one of the swings and looked straight at the dog. Well, Sirius, it's been a while.